Welcome to a special edition of On Texas Basketball. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by Gerry Hamilton. Going to talk about the newest addition to the Texas roster for the 2025-26 season under Sean Miller and get into a little bit of recruiting on this week's edition. This is brought to you by our good friends at Advanced Pain Care. We'll tell you more about Advanced Pain Care with the help of a couple of lifetime Longhorns later in the show. But Gerry, we'll start with this, the addition of Louis Obiorah. Before we get into him specifically, your headline on the On Texas Football message board, your latest basketball contribution, it's sure to grab some attention. Sean Miller putting together the tallest roster ever at Texas. We're not saying the best, but Gerry, got a lot of guys on this that are 6'9", 6'10 plus. It's hard to disagree that this isn't going to be the tallest roster ever on the 40 acres.
I got bad news for Matas. If he thought he was going to be the tallest guy, he's not. The new addition, Louis Obiorah, is. And one of the things I wrote in that story was the 6 new players that Sean Miller has brought in. Louis Obiorah, he was almost 7'1" without shoes on his visit to Texas, I was told yesterday. So, I mean, he's going to be a legit 7'1" guy when he's done growing. Matas is a 6'11 and a half, 7-footer. Lacina Traore, 6'10. Dalen Swain, 6'8. Camden Heide, 6'7. And Simeon Wilcher, 6'4 combo guard. That is really addressing the size needed to go up against what I think when you're building teams at Texas, when you're looking at the SEC, no disrespect to Bruce Pearl or Rick Barnes, but you're looking at Todd Golden and Nate Oates in the way they play, in the big men, and the depth of big men they have. I think Sean Miller's addressed the needs to compete at the highest level in the SEC. And I'm not saying he is year one, going to be a top 4 team, but he's addressing needs in the program on the interior. And it's not just about the height and the length and the wingspans. It's about the size to defend the rim and defend the paint defensively, limit second shots. The only way you're going to have transition offense is if you grab rebounds and you limit second shot opportunities, and then you get more in transition. If you're taking the ball out of the basket and inbounds in it, you're not going to have as many transition looks. So Texas has done a great job addressing size, and that's throughout the roster. This roster now is comprised of only one player that's under 6'3", and that is Jordan Pope, who's a tremendous shooter and averaged double figures in the SEC last year. So Texas has taken a big step in size of roster, especially on the interior and on the wings.
Gerry, to me, not so much like you said the height or the length per se, but to me, looking at the SEC, and granted, I watched the SEC from a distance while Texas was in the Big 12 because that's another conference where there is no off night in and night out. But you look at the SEC, Gerry, it was the physicality. And there were a lot of nights where Texas was counting on stuff that you probably couldn't count on, either Caden Shedrick staying out of foul trouble or Zarek Onyema giving you, positive minutes in that 8 to 12 minute range. Like I said, stuff you just couldn't count on. You've got a much bigger margin for error now with the bigs that you've got on this team.
Totally agree. I mean, Matas can score in the paint. Lacina Traore was a double-double guy. Dalen Swain is that combo forward at 6'8" with long arms who can challenge bigs off the bounce if you're playing in a small ball lineup. So Texas and Nick Cody, I think Texas really likes what they've seen from Nick Cody. John Clark's going to bring a physicality as a freshman in a role off the bench. And we're going to get to Louis Obiorah. I think we're going to see more of him in year 2. I think this will be more of a developmental year for him. But, Jeff, physicality guard with size. Simeon Wilcher's a 6'4" guy, right? You put him on the court at times with Tremont Mark, who's 6'5 and a half. And suddenly you sit there in your lineup as Tremont Mark, Simeon Wilcher when you're playing big, Cam Heide or Dalen Swain, Matas, and maybe a Nick Cody. You have the size, the physicality, the length, and the ability to switch positions defensively and actually guard the bigger teams in the league and not give up elite big-time mismatches on switches. So I think Sean Miller's done a great job addressing size throughout the roster, that physicality that they're going to need at multiple positions.
Gerry, I hate to put before we get to Obiorah, I hate to put so much on one guy, but is Dalen Swain and his kind of trajectory, is that the difference maybe between Texas being the team that can be in the tournament and a team that may have a chance to get to the second weekend and do something?
Yeah, look, he's in a couple of mock drafts in the first round next year. And the only way I see that happening is if he becomes like a 32, 33% three-point shooter, which he made some strides this year from not shooting it well freshman year, got up to about 25%. So if he makes that next progression, if he ends up being a 32, 33, 34% three-point shooter to go with the rest of his game, his shot, that's not where it needs to be long-term in the NBA. But if he makes that progression in year 3, he's probably going to be a first-round pick. And then that takes your team to another level, because that means you're getting a first-round level player as your combo forward who's 6'8" and already has ball skills and can really see the floor and makes plays, switches on defense. He can guard 1 through 4 essentially. But if he starts being a guy you have to guard, and you just don't say, hey, take about 3 threes and we'll decide if we're going to guard you. If teams actually have to guard him and contest him, that helps your floor spacing, and that helps open everything else up. And if Dalen Swain makes that jump, then yeah, I think that's going to be a difference. I think that, and I think the other thing will be, what does Sean Miller unlock with Simeon Wilcher in year 3? Because I think he's a better shooter than he showed his sophomore year at St. John's. And then what does he lock in an all-around game with Jordan Pope? Those are 3 guys. I think you know what you'll get from Matas. I think you'll know what you're going to get from Lucina, Tremont Mark, and Kendall Weaver, and Cam Heide to a certain extent. I think he'll score more at Texas. I think you know what you're going to get from those guys. It's Swain, it's Wilcher, it's Pope. If those 3 guys all play at a pretty high level, Texas, I think, will have a chance to be a second weekend team.
I just keep going back to the height, Jerry. Like, you look at last year's team, and you know Jason Kent and Arthur Kaluma were kind of tweener guys, 6'7", 6'8". Dalen Swain 6'8" plus, and then you look at your true front court guys. John Clark might be the smallest guy, Jerry, at 6'8.5". He might be the shortest guy in that room.
And he's got some size to him. But yeah, I agree, and I agree with that. And that's just how far this roster's come. I mean, and you know where that's good too is we're talking about games and results in games, but it's really good in practice. Because how do your bigs get better if they have to go up against other bigs? I mean, you could have a 6'11.5" Matas, and if you have a bunch of 6'7" guys around him, how much is he really challenged in his development and practice? What Texas has, and we're about to get the Louis Obiorah, you're bringing in guys who can challenge each other from a height length perspective in the practice setting, which in the practice setting is also in your June drills, right? When coaches can get these guys on the court, that helps their development playing against other like length height players and not always working with a big height and length advantage.
Yeah, I think about Obiorah, Jerry, as we get into him. I don't imagine he faced too many guys in England like Lucina Traore, 6'10" guys that were double-digit rebound guys at the Division I level. Jerry, this kid's 19 years old. Like you said, he's a legit 7'1". Temper expectations for year 1, but goodness gracious, the ceiling is insanely high with this kid.
Yeah, I think so. Look, he's got really good feet. He's a former soccer player, right? A lot of kids growing up playing football internationally and in Europe, and he's one of those guys. He's got really good feet. I think he can score it with either hand. You're going to see in this video here, jump shot doesn't even look bad. I mean, this is a guy who's a legit 7 feet tall. That's not bad for a young kid, but especially when you consider if you're a 7'1" player, where's your team going to play you? They're going to play you right there. They're going to play you 5 feet from the basket because they want you to shoot 70% from the field and be in position the offensive rebound. So the shot his shot's not bad. There you see a nice pass. He shows some recognition, but the one thing you see is he scores it over either shoulder. He's got good feet. And he is a guy who will play through some contact and finish. And look, it's going to look like he's not playing against great competition there because he's 7'1". I mean, like he's so much bigger. But there's a few college guys on that court. But there you see the feet, the ability to spin. There you see a guy in transition. And you see the plays he makes, just hustle plays, finding the basketball, spin moves like that. He's got a lot of upside. And it's going to take him a while. Like I think year 1, if he played much year 1, I think there's either injuries or he just raced past expectations. I look at this as a really good take that you start to see in year 2 under Sean Miller. And this is what I really like about what Sean's doing is he's not just trying to build for 1 year, one flash year. when he takes the Texas program over. He's trying to build for the long haul, and that's still the way you have to do this, even in the portal day and age. The guys he's signed, if you think about it, Matas, Dalen Swain, Camden Heide, Simeon Wilcher, and now Obiorah, they all have the possibility of being multi-year players at Texas. Only Lucina Traore is guaranteed to be a one-year player. Now, you hope Dalen Swain's a first-round pick because that means you had a really good season and he goes pro. But 5 of the 6 guys Sean Miller has signed since he's been at Texas, and keeping John Clark in the boat, by the way. So say 6 of 7 are all going to be multi-year players unless Dalen Swain has a great season.
Yeah, I think about the development of bigs at Texas over the years too, Jerry. I go back to Shaka Smart's time, but Darren Horn, I think, was really good about identifying, recruiting, and then developing bigs. And all those guys were on different timelines. Jackson Hayes got there faster than I think everybody thought he would, including the staff. Kai Jones was a 2-year guy that worked his tail off, and Jericho Sims took some time, but all 3 of those guys as of now, still playing in the NBA. So they eventually got there on different trajectories. Not saying that's going to happen with this group, Jerry, but sometimes big guys, they can hit that curve earlier or it might take them a minute.
Yeah, no, and especially the guys who are your 6'11", 7-foot guys, because it takes those guys a while for everything to catch up to their growth in their body, right? I mean, especially a kid that's young, like Obiorah, is 19 years old, and some people say, is that really young? It's young in a basketball life when you're 7'1". Yeah. I mean, so it takes a while to grow into that body, fill out that frame, get strong, understanding how that body's changed and how to use that body to your advantage and develop around that frame. And it takes those guys some time. And Jeff, I'll throw this question to you. And I said it, the tallest Texas team I've ever seen. You'd agree with that, right? I mean, there's Texas, 2 7-footers on the roster, 6'10", 6'9". Your forwards are 6'8", 6'7". You have point guard who's 6'5.5", combo guard 6'4". This is the tallest roster I've seen at Texas. And that doesn't mean it's going to be the best team, but it's really interesting how quickly Sean Miller addressed his needs.
I think so. The only other one that I think about, because that team was so good, I still think it's the most talented team Rick had, was the 05-06 team that went to the Elite Eight and got beat by LSU. Incredible length on that team with Aldridge and Buckman and Tucker, and even the guards with Boobie Gibson and Kenton Paulino.
Mike Williams off the bench.
Yeah, but as good as that team was, Rick didn't have multiple 7-footers he could go.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's what I look at. I'm like, last year, like when Texas played Florida, that was the game because Florida used their bigs. They ran their offense through their bigs, so their bigs played on the perimeter a lot. Mm-hmm. And that was a game, that was kind of the glowing game, I think, for Texas and Sean Miller when he probably was scouting Texas leading up to playing Texas in the NCAA tournament, because those guys watch a lot of games, right? And in watching that is saying, okay, if it's an isolation offense, if the shots aren't falling, they didn't have answers. And because you weren't a great rebounding team, you couldn't get any transition offense because you weren't limiting second chance opportunities enough. So I think Sean Miller's done a great job addressing these needs right off the bat, because Florida and Alabama come at you with athleticism and skill in 2 different ways: athleticism and depth at Alabama, skilled bigs who can play on the perimeter, and then they had Chinaloo as well at Florida. So it's 2 different types of bigs. And I think one thing Sean Miller's done so well is address the need to – we have to protect the rim. We have to be able to sit in the paint and defend. And then we have to find a way to limit second shots. Because if we can do that, then we have a chance to score in transition and get early offense and not always be forced to play late shot clock basketball against really talented teams in the SEC.
All right, Jerry, we got one more roster note and a couple of recruiting notes, but before we do that, let's hear from this week's sponsor. With the help of a couple of lifetime Longhorns, here's a note from our friends at Advanced Pain Care.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. And Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
The gray-beard Vince Young reminds us that Father Time is always undefeated, Jerry. He's eternity and 2 roster spots left, Jerry, 2 scholarship spots. Texas could use one of those. And you had an interesting note, too, on the site this week, and I think it's worth getting into. International guys that could be looking at college basketball as a multi-year plan, as the G League has gone away from being an option for guys. International guys, I think, are getting more aware of the opportunities that are in America, especially with the NIL structure. Basically patience, I think, not just for Sean Miller and the staff, but I think everybody, Jerry, wondered, what are they going to do with that spot? What are they going to do with it? I think maybe everybody just needs to take a little bit of time, and everybody's trying to figure it out, Sean Miller and company included.
Well, I think the main thing is they're going to be patient, because this last spot is all about a fit, right? And because the reality is, here's the reality: Tremont Mark's going to play a lot of minutes. Jordan Pope, Simeon Wilcher, Kendall Weaver are going to play a lot of minutes. So that final guard spot, it could be a guy who comes in as a multi-year guy who's not expecting major minutes. It could be a piece for this team, right? Could be more of a developmental player. It doesn't have to be a guy that's coming in with the expectations of playing heavy minutes, because the reality is, any agent that's looking at Texas right now, that's going to be the first question they have. Hey, is my guy going to really – how much is my guy going to be able to play? Yeah. So that's where fit comes into play. And one thing that Sean Miller, again, they're looking for the long haul here. They're not looking for the year one. They feel like they have a really good roster. They want to win, don't get me wrong, but they're not putting all their eggs in one-year basket. They've got to build a program and build a culture here that's sustainable. That's what all new coaches do. So, look, there could be a reclass guy from high school that ends up reclassing in the 25 late that they really like. That anything's on the table, and I think they're being patient because they want to make sure it's the right guy. I think that's the key. They want to make sure it's the right guy, and the right guy is going to be the right fit. It's not about trying to stack talent and then you have issues as the season moves along. It's about finding the right fit to go with the pieces they already have.
When you talk about a multi-year plan, Jerry, don't forget high school recruiting is also a big part of that. The live period, the staff's been able to get out. The usual suspects, Austin Gooseby, major target for the staff. Bo Ogden, major target for the staff. Jerry, how's that 26 recruiting board looking for Sean Miller right now?
Looking good. He offered the Ratliff twins, 6'11" centers out of Archbishop Stepinac. They have about 6-7 offers. They watched Anthony Thompson on the Adidas circuit this past weekend, the 6'8" lefty power forward out of Ohio who can really shoot it and sees the floor well. They watch Gooseby. They watch Bo Ogden. They watch a lot of guys. They watch some 27s too along the way, obviously. But that 26 board they offered another guard in that 26 class here in the last couple of days. So they're nearing about 10 offers they've made since the staff has been together. And then when they hit the road, I expect 2 or 3, 4 more offers to be coming in the next couple of weeks. The big question though is, look, they're going to end up offering probably 15, 16, 20 players in that class, but that may be for 2 spots, max 3 spots at the high school level. So that's the thing to consider. How big is the class going to be? It's not going to be a 5-man high school class. That doesn't get it done. You're not doing that. You could go 3, maybe stretch to 4, but it would have to be tremendous players at that point for Texas. I think Texas is in a good spot for Austin Gooseby. I think Texas is in a pretty good spot for Bo Ogden. That doesn't mean the fit's going to be there for everybody. It also could depend on how many guys Texas takes. I mean, maybe they take 1 guard and 1 big in that class in high school and maybe best available. We're going to have to see how it all plays out.
By the way, I know you didn't mention it there, but it is worth mentioning Adonis and Darius Ratliff, sons of Theo Ratliff. So
yes.
If shot blocking, rebounding, rim protecting, if it gets passed down, Jerry, then sign me up, because it's one thing Theo Ratliff could do, could paint and protect the rim at the NBA level. All right, Jerry, thank you for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes and the entire On Texas Football staff. Also, thank you to Advanced Pain Care for sponsoring this edition of On Texas Basketball. Make sure you subscribe to the On Texas Football YouTube channel if you're not already. Like this video and get over to ontexasfootball.com. Jerry's always dropping basketball nuggets over there. If you're not a member, use the promo code OTFOG when you sign up. That's OTFOG. That'll get you 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for $49.95. And don't forget, go ahead and follow the On Texas Basketball Instagram account. That's at On Texas Basketball on Instagram. Jerry, I understand we got some people hard at work on the On Texas Basketball Instagram account right now.
It's my son.
I was trying to be generous, but yes, he's hard at work making sure that On Texas Basketball Instagram account is up and running. All right, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the show. For Gerry Hamilton, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for tuning into this edition of On Texas Basketball. And until next time, hook 'em.